Ramona Shelburne, ESPN NBA insider, senior writer, NBA Today panelist. How much trouble are the Lakers in, Ramona?
I think they're okay for now. Like I thought they could have won game one. Probably should not have. They should have won game two and did not. Right. So how do you? It's one thing if you're getting blown out of these games, if you're not competitive, if you don't match up well with this team. I think Denver looks like a better team in these two games, but the Lakers are right there with them. And how much of the way Denver looks is because you're playing at altitude. The Lakers kind of hit a wall. I think they're playing LeBron and AD and some of their main guys really heavy minutes early on. And I thought in the fourth quarter last night, it just looked like the Lakers hit a wall. They looked tired. It was a lot to ask LeBron to be guarding Nikola Jokic and trying to be LeBron on offense. But they go back home. They haven't lost at home since late March. they haven't lost a game there in a long time. You got to feel good about that. They've gotten pretty much nothing out of D'Angelo Russell in this series. He'll probably play better at home. They haven't got much from Dennis Schroeder. He'll probably play better at home. But I don't think they're in that much trouble yet.
Yeah, I was watching last night, and LeBron's settling for those three-point shots. And this happens a lot with older players, that they will settle because it takes a lot to get to the hoop. And LeBron, when he gets to the hoop, is one of the maybe the best close that we've ever seen. But he keeps shooting the threes, and the Nuggets want him to keep shooting the threes. For somebody with a really high basketball IQ, at what point does LeBron say, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't be taking these threes. He's the greatest scorer of all time. He's nowhere near one of the greatest shooters of all time.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good way to put it. You've seen the graphic, right, or the stats of he's what he is by quarter for 3-pointers in the playoffs, and it's pretty staggering, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they had 1 of 20 in the whole playoffs. And every time I see him shoot it, I'm like yelling at the TV, "Oh, not again! What do you do?" I mean, they're daring him to shoot those shots. Mm-hmm. That's what they're giving him, and I think he makes the change. I mean, he will try to shoot himself through some of these things. He's not afraid of taking those shots, but I think he is smart enough to say, okay, they're daring me to take them. We have to do something else here. Anthony Davis was the same thing. I thought he hasn't been a good 3-point shooter the last few years. He really and he made one of them yesterday. And it was like, oh, is this going to come back? Because if you remember in 2020, one of the biggest shots of Anthony Davis's career was when he hit the 3 against the Nuggets and then yelled out Kobe. You remember that? And that was this very defining moment for him. And I felt like when he hit the first one, I was like, oh, we're back in 2020 where he's making threes again. I mean, if he hits those shots, it really gives a different dimension to the Laker offense, but he really hasn't hit 3-pointers in a couple of years. So, at some point you kind of have to get realistic with what you're really going to do offensively. And I think the adjustment for the Lakers is to find some way to get production out of some of their other good offensive players who have done things in the playoffs, who should be able to do things in this series. They can't just ask as much of LeBron and AD on both ends of the court.
And also, there's so much focus on stopping or at least containing Joker that Jamal Murray is averaging 7 more points per game in the playoffs. How much of a responsibility is that going to be? Because he looked like, the second coming of Klay Thompson last night in the fourth quarter. He
might be. I mean, that's the thing. Jamal might be the second coming of Klay. It was an amazing stat somebody came up with last night. He's got 4 20-point fourth quarters, and the only other that's the most in the last 25 years. The others are Iverson and Jordan. I mean,
wow,
that's pretty good.
Yeah.
He's Jamal is that heat check kind of guy. He was that guy in the bubble. We don't think of him that way because he hasn't been an all-star. He play, and maybe that's where Michael Malone is right about them not getting the national attention or whatever it is. I heard some of that and laughed. I just thought that was coach talk, trying to fire his team up and making sure they knew that no one's respecting them and they have to earn respect. My second thought on that was be careful what you wish for. Right? You want all the attention? Okay. But you may not enjoy it all.
And I was saying that to Nuggets fans this morning. Like, you know what? It's okay. Like the last 3 years, we've waited for you to take the next step. San Antonio Spurs never asked for any publicity. Their head coach didn't.
Ever.
Their star player didn't. All they said is, if we win a championship, you have to cover us. You have to talk about it. Yeah. And that's what I would say to Denver. Right. Just win.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I feel like I have done so many segments on NBA Today where we will react to a Denver Nuggets game or highlight. And I'm pretty sure my analysis, Richard Jefferson's about all of us, we all go, hey, that Nikola Jokic, man, is he good.
All right, next topic.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, I think we've been saying that for 4 years.
I also wanted to bring this up, that on Monday, Ramona reported that James Harden's potential free agency might hinge on whether or not the Sixers brought Doc Rivers back for another season. Well, we saw how that played out. Are the Sixers guaranteed that James Harden is coming back after firing Doc Rivers?
I don't think they're guaranteed of that. And it's an interesting dilemma for them because on the one hand, they cannot afford to lose James Harden because if he leaves, they don't have very much to replace him. They don't have any of those mechanisms in the salary under the salary cap to replace him. You just walk out the door. And I think the Houston situation is a real threat, and I think other teams, maybe Phoenix, who would be looking for an offensive player like that. Those are real threats to watch with Harden. He can probably make the most money in Philadelphia for the longest term. But Houston they do have a significant amount of cap space, and they really could re-sign him, which is a fun full circle after the way he left, right? I think, the way I phrased it on the show, and I think this is the right way to put it, is it would be hard to see James coming back if Doc was still the coach. Does that mean he went in there and said, I'm leaving if Doc is here? No, it means that everybody knew they didn't have a great relationship, right? That there had been some, Doc had kind of got into James a few times, trying to, with this culture of accountability he tries to have in his locker room, and didn't always go over well, right? And I think the offensive system, I think James never felt quite comfortable playing a different role. His role is really supposed to be in service to Embiid, and he talked very openly, very often about having to sacrifice his offensive game for Joel. So I think it's all of the above. Like, I think James is smart enough to realize, he didn't have to say it like that, and for people to understand what his feelings were. But they still have some work to do to re-sign him. And now the question is, are they a better team with James Harden long term? Do they want to commit to this Embiid Harden marriage for the next 4 years? Because that's what it would be.
Yeah.
Or can you risk letting him walk out the door? Are there things you could do with sign-in trades? It's, I think Daryl Morey phrased it well. He said, option one is to re-sign James. Option two is to get really creative. I don't know which option is better.
Thanks for joining us. Thanks for getting up, and we appreciate your time as always. Is this more likely to be a 5-game series with the Lakers or a 7-game series?
I think 7. I mean, the Lakers have not lost at home since late March. We always do this in the playoffs where we go from one game to the next. And from what you've seen, what do you think? I think it looks like the Lakers were in both games. They shouldn't have won game 1. They were lucky to be there. Game 2, they should have won, and they kind of blew it at the end. And Jamal Murray got hot. Like, that's a pretty good. You should have got one of those games in Denver, but at some point you have to hold serve at home, and they've been really good at home. It's been for 2 months.
Thank you, Ramona.
You got it, Dan.
That's Ramona Shelburne, ESPN NBA insider, senior writer, works for NBA Today.